If you were being scammed, do you think you would know you were being scammed? Do you think you're smart enough to realize? Do you think in an industry like something like video games, you'd have to worry about something like this? Well, guess what? You do. I always figured if my game was on my hard drive and I was in offline mode, I own that game. It's mine. I paid for it. I could do what I want with it. If it was DRM free and I didn't have to access online to play the game, then I would be able to have that game forever. But the problem now is digital rights management, which is DRM, which is disguised as anti-piracy software, is on everything. And when it's on everything, that means you have to access online to play your game. And if you have to access online to play your game, they can take away whatever the online portion is that you're accessing, and therefore your game no longer works. So you don't actually own shit. So now what you're telling me is everything I've ever purchased that I thought I actually owned, as long as I have a digital copy of it, means I don't actually own it? It means every single thing I've bought and spent thousands and thousands of dollars on is just gone? If they want it to be? That's really great. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do about this. What is your digital library like? Mine is huge. At some point, I really cared about physical media. It was very important to me. I collected a lot of it. I still do some of it. But at some point, I realized it's just so much easier to access games online. There's so many sales on Steam all the time. You can just go on there, see what's on for sale, see what's on your wish list, grab up a game for cheap, and move it along. You don't have to get in your car. You don't have to spend gas. You don't have to go to the store. You have to deal with people, lines, none of it. I mean, I really liked having the physical copy of the game, but at some point I realized those all deteriorate anyways. That feeling of I'm going to own this forever. Well, you know what? That thing is not made to last anyways. Game CDs used to last 30 years is what they say the average lifespan is supposed to be. I have many CDs older than that I think are still working. I think. But the point of the story is it's not like you actually own this stuff forever anyways, but it's nice to be able to have it. But at some point when you realize that it's okay to just have it on your system and it's still a form of technically having it, it's on my hard drive, it's there. But no, I don't actually own it and it can get taken away at any time. We're basically paying full price for rentals. So why don't we just rent everything? Or why don't you just charge us a rental price since you can take it away at any time? It doesn't really seem right to me. This was never really brought forth in a way that we would understand, at least if you weren't reading the fine print. And I don't know about you, but when I'm buying a video game, the last thing I'm doing is reading the fine print. Maybe nowadays with all the sneakiness going on. But back in the day, even 10 years ago, that's not even back in the day, but even 10 years ago, you'd buy a game digitally on Steam. You wouldn't think about, oh, do I actually own this? Can they take this away at some point? You just buy the game and have the game on your hard drive and figure it's mine now. I own it. I can have it forever. Even if Steam goes away, since there's such things as offline mode and whatever, I'll always be able to access the file as long as I have the file. Okay, now let's talk about being able to even access that file. How big is a PlayStation hard drive? How big is a Xbox hard drive? Those things aren't made to be able to store games, and I'm starting to realize it's not just a money thing. It's for a reason. Why do you think the new Call of Duty is so big? Mainly because it's optimized to ass, but it's because you can't even store all of it on your hard drive. If your hard drive was any smaller, what would you do? It takes up your whole thing. So you're telling me if I don't actually own my games, and especially if they're not downloaded at that point, you can just take them away off the store at any time. If it's not on my hard drive, it's as good as basically I've returned it to you at that point. And now, in the land of games now, where your hard drive can only store 1 or 2, 3 games, depending on the size, every game that I don't currently have installed, basically I've returned. Think of Blockbuster back in the day. You took something off the shelf, you brought it home. You've now brought that back to the store and put it back on the shelf if it's not installed. And essentially even less, because even if it's installed, they can still limit your access or take it away. I mean, I kind of realized a little bit of that, and I think a lot of other people did too, but not to the extent that they're proving it and pointing it out now. Not to the point where you realize that literally, they haven't been accountable for any of this the whole time, and they basically control all our games, and they can do whatever they want with it, and there's just nothing we can do about it. You either buy the physical copy or you don't. But now we're moving into an all-digital age. Certain games are literally not even available physical. So you're telling me the only way to play that game is to technically rent that game? Because let's not call it purchasing anymore. If I purchase something and I buy something, that means I have a physical copy of that game. That means like in that shelf over there where I have all my old Game Boy Advance games and all my old Sega games and all that stuff, I can at any time take those cartridges, pop them into my system, and I can play them. Nobody can tell me I can't. No online thing can stop me from doing it. As long as that physical media has not degraded and it still works, then it works and I can use it. But now, we don't even have physical media. And a lot of games don't even come out physical. And I think I'm like maybe behind on the times with this. Do you know it took me like a decade to realize they didn't even put a disk drive in your PC anymore? I just didn't notice. At some point, I didn't even realize. I'm like, oh, every laptop I buy doesn't even have a disk drive anymore. My computer doesn't even have a disk drive. Nothing's on disk. You can't buy PC games on a disk. They've gone away. And now it's the same things happening with consoles. And I'm not sure what we're supposed to do about it. Do you think that the next generation of consoles, not the current, but the next, is going to have a CD drive? I think it's going to be possibly an addition that you can buy. And then I think the generation after that, there won't even be an option. There just won't be physical media. I'm pretty sure we're just moving to an all digital age. I don't know any other industry that treats us this badly. Imagine you bought a car and you paid for it full price, and then with it came a thing that says manufacturer can take back at any time. Like, what? No, that wouldn't fly. What other industry do we get treated, and do the consumers in that industry get treated as badly in a mainstream entertainment industry as video games? This is insane. I don't know how these companies are doing this. And now you look at what California did. Thank God they're trying to at least make it so that all these companies have to pass a thing. And I hear Steam is going to have to put up a little warning letting you know that you're not actually purchasing it. You're renting it, basically a glorified rental. But now we got to move on to subscription services. I didn't even realize they were like the Trojan horse. I've been going on for a long time about how there's been a reset in the industry and a reset in video games in general. And it kind of started with subscription services. And when I talk about subscription services, I always lumped Steam in there. And maybe that's because subconsciously I was realizing, well, it's technically a subscription service. They could take your game away at any time. But I thought at least if it's on my hard drive, it'll always work. I wasn't thinking about all the DRM and everything else and the fact that you literally don't own it. In no shape, way, no matter how you try and spin it, no matter how you try and make yourself feel better in your head, you don't own that game. You're renting it. It's a glorified rental that you just paid full price for. So now I'm also realizing games don't even cost $100. Video game rentals cost $100. So I'll never say video games are cheap again. I don't know what we do. The subscription services is the downfall of it all now. And I used to think they were a good thing. I really did. I used to praise them and say that things like Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, and like I said, I used to lump Steam in there just because of their practices and their refund policies. It's basically like a subscription service. That those are such a good thing, especially for people who don't have a high budget and want to be able to access more than a couple games a month. It's a really great thing, but it was like the Trojan horse into the industry. It's getting us used to and conditioned to the fact that we don't own games. You are just renting it. And I don't know any other industry where you pay full price for something and you don't actually own it, or they can just take it back at any time. That literally doesn't make any sense. I'm going to fight for physical media so much harder now. Physical, you could always take any game you bought from Walmart, walk back in, say, I don't like this. You could beat the game in a weekend. Let's be honest here. It happened. You could beat the game in a weekend, bring it back, say, I bought this Friday, opened it up, it's not working right. Take it back Monday, be like, I don't even want this. Give me store credit and get a whole different game. When I was a poor kid, guilty as charged. So do you remember the PlayStation, how they won that generation where all they had to do was come up on stage and show how you share your game, and all he did was take the disc and hand it over to the guy? And he's like, this is how you share games on PlayStation. That was amazing. That was such like a mic drop moment, but it was because they realized that that's what gamers want. This whole trying to push digital only and everything, you don't actually own it. That was their way of saying, look, you own it. You buy it, you can share it. This is how you do it. You take the disc, you give it to someone else. And now they're in the same boat as all the people they were basically, ragging on when they were doing that. it's there's an illusion of ownership, and it's on purpose. The reason they don't say rent and it says buy or purchase when you're in a digital storefront for a video game store and buying something is because if it said rent, can you imagine how people would feel and freak out? Like, what's going to happen? I wonder if this gets out enough and enough of us are like really thinking about it. Is it going to change anything, or are we just super conditioned to like there's nothing you can do about it now? The video people who play video games are already so used to getting treated like shit that this is just how it is. Oh, by the way, you don't actually own anything you paid full price for either. Okay. And I'm sure it was in some small print that we clicked on somewhere, but I mean, you hid that in small print. You know, that I feel like is on you treating me poorly more than it is on me for not reading it. I just want to buy a video game. I'm excited to play it. The last thing I'm doing is reading through 50 pages of tiny print I can barely read without walking up to my giant flat screen in the first place and looking and trying to read it. Like, you know, that's not happening, and you know it's not happening. When you know that when you were selling us the game. Renting us the game, sorry. So, I don't know. That whole illusion of ownership is on purpose, you know? So, they just want you addicted to these online games, and that's why they keep pushing for it. And that's why they give you these free-to-play games, and they keep pushing those models too. They just want you addicted to games, buying skins. Don't worry about owning anything. You'll be happy. I don't know. It's a grim future. It's another one of the grim ones, I guess. But I guess the best thing you can do against it is buy physical media where you still can. Make sure games are DRM free when you purchase them. Don't get rid of any digital media you have that isn't on a rented platform. And just remember from here moving forward, and especially when you look at a price tag of a game, just know like you don't actually own this. So, I don't know. Scary thought. What do you guys think about it? This is like, the more I look into it, the more I'm realizing that I've been super ignorant on this subject. I wonder if anyone else has been as silly as me because, you know, I at least thought that when I paid full price for something, I own it. But, you know, apparently I've been bamboozled. So there we go. That's it, guys. Thanks. I'm out.